excited to be here today on the Damn Digest, joined by Ahmed Baba, who is of the editor-at-large, editor-in-chief of Ahmed Baba Report. We are today, I put the title of this show today, Ahmed, is "The State of Our Union is Trash." And we can't even really get to the State of the Union, what is coming up in a few hours from now, because Bombshell, NPR, folks, I'm certain that you all have seen this because it is 2:32 p.m. Eastern. NPR reports the Department of Justice pulled interviews that the FBI had done with one accuser of Donald Trump 4 different times. This is what they believed was a credible accusation from a Jane Doe, who then the Department of Justice, Ahmed, would later release her name and then go back and redact it again, who says that when she was 13 years old, and we're talking about the years between 1983 and 1985, the accuser says that when she was 13 years old, she was introduced to Donald Trump. He exposed himself to her. She bit him, right? After he exposed himself to her, he punched her in the head. 13 at the time. Donald Trump has said how many times, Ahmed, that he is exonerated. He is not guilty of any crimes. We've heard this not just from him, but from his attorney general, from the deputy attorney general. It is obscene that we are sitting here on a Tuesday in a few hours that this man is going to give the State of our Union, which I'll say again is trash, having been accused credible enough that it was included on an internal slideshow by the FBI. They did not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 interviews with this woman. Tell me how this lands with you today.
It's just no longer, the caveat that, mainstream media always does is we have to make clear that Donald Trump has not been accused within the Epstein files of any misconduct. Throw that away now, because now we have right here clear-cut accusation that was credible enough, like you said, that it was interviewed 4 times. And here's why I think this needs so much attention. It's not just that the allegation itself, but the way that they handled it to withhold it. So what we know is that there were 4 total interviews in 2019, and that 3 of the interviews basically have been wiped. The first one doesn't mention the allegations.
Yep.
And the reason how NPR discovered this, and now MS Now is corroborating, is that in the indices of the documents that were released in the Maxwell case, basically showed that there was this discrepancy. So they look into it and they find out that this interview, that first interview in 2019, was by the same person that accused him of this assault. Like you said, in that FBI presentation that was dropped in 2025. So much piecing together had to happen. They almost successfully hid this. Right. So what you have is, why withhold this allegation? Cover up this allegation when there's so many other salacious allegations that they say are unsubstantiated. Why hide this one in particular? And I think that is the question that this White House has to answer, because the fact that they interviewed this accuser 4 times for this 1983 accusation and didn't follow up on the other ones, what does that tell you? That tells you it's credible enough. 4 times, not twice, not once, right. 4 times.
4 times. And I think that the thing that gets me about this too, I mean, aside from, look, the 3 million file dump that we got now a few weeks ago, revealed the extent of this syndicate's depravity, their dehumanization, their cruelty, their misogyny, lack of morals doesn't even go, is not even strong enough, right? No. To understand what was happening in the minds and what continues to happen in the minds of these men. Because what I said the other day on Al Jazeera was that what they want to do is pin the Epstein syndicate on this one man that is no longer with us, and on this one woman that is supposedly locked away, right? And all is done. This was a multi-billion-dollar global syndicate across industries involving the most powerful men and the most powerful people in the world. We really think that this just up and disappeared in 2019 when Jeffrey Epstein killed himself? Do we really think that no one has picked up the mantle? And so when I think about this accusation that is in these files of this man, and I think about Ahmed, the several administrations that had access to this information.
Mhm.
When you think about that, why? Why was this never released? Why was this, again, we're now learning that the Department of Justice had been investigating wire fraud and investigating money laundering of Jeffrey Epstein going back to 2008, 2010. This is years and years over multiple administrations. Why do you think that it was never investigated to the length? Because if we think about it, and again, mind you, Donald Trump said I could grab them by the pussy. Donald Trump said that I used to stumble into the Miss Teen pageant's dressing room, right, while
Mhm.
teenagers were getting dressed. None of it was cared about. And so, do we even think that if this information had come out previous to 2016, previous to him running, if America would have cared?
I think maybe potentially previous to, but once we got to the place where Trump and the Republican Party has built a reflexive system of
Hmm.
defense of just boundless corruption and shamelessness, now nothing sticks to him, right? But I think there's so many facets of this, and I want to spend time on the allegation first, and then we can, because like the broader, I want to spend like a good amount of time on the broader Epstein
Yeah,
network,
yeah,
because I think there's so much there when it comes to the way he exploited elite high society and networked his way up there, and all the, now we're seeing the peripheral crimes being charged,
yep.
like Mandelson and
And
former
Andrew,
ex-Prince
yep,
Andrew, where they were feeding him information. It was a real transactional relationship there. So we can touch on that in a bit. But on this misconduct specifically, like the fact that they're gonna spin it, like they're
yep,
gonna spin it, like it's gonna take this person coming out. Like I think personally it will have some impact in public support. I don't think he'll get impeached over it or anything. But if this individual comes forward and starts speaking publicly and doing interviews and like actually taking it on, that would be something. But what was remarkable with this specific misconduct allegation is that in the interview from the one that we actually saw, is that when she was talking about her allegation of Epstein,
hmm,
she was saying she didn't want to show an image that could potentially incriminate someone else in the picture, and it
yep,
was, and MS Now and NPR are saying that it was a photo of Epstein, the famous photo of Epstein and Trump
yep,
together. So what she's saying is she's fearing retaliation when she's being interviewed in 2019, because this is Donald
hmm,
Trump's first term and he's the president. This individual cooperated with the FBI for 4 interviews, and then in another part of the file says she stopped cooperating. So what pressure was put on her? There's so many unanswered questions of what
yeah.
happened at this time. What pressure was put on her? Why did she bow? Where is she now? What is she, like what is happening with this allegation with this individual? They interviewed her 4 separate times, and I can't get
Hmm.
over the fact that it was 4 times over a really short rapid period of time in the end of summer of 2019 to October. And I'm just wondering, there's so many questions that have to be answered, and people cannot let this slide. This is the president of the United States being accused of engaging in a pedophilia ring with Jeffrey Epstein, and it has to be pursued fully.
And here's the thing is that people across the pond, and I'm talking the UK, France, Switzerland, right? Going even further into the Middle East, people who were mentioned less times,
Yes.
less times than Donald Trump in this last dump of these files have been forced to resign,
Hmm.
are being criminally investigated, right? Are, and yet, here is Donald Trump telling us, and an entire Republican Party, like you said, have built this reflexive structure where nothing sticks to this man. I mean, but we knew this as people from New York. He's been called Teflon Don,
Mhm.
right? That was his nickname in New York. Why? Because everything would bounce off of him. Every criminal investigation, every lawsuit would just bounce off of this man because he had the money, he had the name, and he had the complexion for the protection in order for nothing to ever stick with him. But when we look at this accusation, and Roger Sollenberger, who is also, he's been covering this on Substack as well, and he says the DOJ exposed name of Trump underage accuser after she refused to cooperate. You say we're all saying the same thing, reading the same articles, and I'm thinking to myself, it shouldn't take this woman having to come forward because
You're
we
right.
know what happens when these people come forward.
You're
Look
right.
at Virginia Giuffre.
You're
Look
right.
at Virginia Giuffre, who without her courage, over the years that she was slandered by the royal family, slandered in the press, called a liar, now is no longer with us.
But vindicated it afterwards.
It's like, is it fair of us to ask
You're right.
somebody to take on the president of the United States, who has been known, and we've seen over and over again, weaponize the power of the federal government to go after private citizens?
No, you're spot on. And honestly, you're right. It shouldn't take this survivor to come forward. What it should this alone, the association alone, before this allegation,
Yep.
right? I mean, we know for a fact Virginia Giuffre was trafficked out of Mar-a-Lago.
Yep.
Trump on the record said that multiple plural girls were taken from Mar-a-Lago.
His property was stolen, right?
Stolen.
That's
Yeah,
what
he called it
stolen.
property. Weird. Strange, disgusting behavior. Then we have the birthday card where he's clearly alluding to a shared secret. That alone. And then on top of that, you have continued association with Epstein, and Epstein in an email saying of course, Trump knew about the girls. Now you have this allegation. And you have, Jeffrey, talking about how Donald's the other shoe to drop, right? Or, and all of this stuff. And I just want to emphasize that point, that these people in the UK and across the world who are being held accountable for significantly less than Trump.
Yep.
And there are people who are being fired, losing their jobs for simply being involved in the elevation of power of individuals who were tied to Jeffrey Epstein. Peter Mandelson,
Yep.
he is under criminal investigation. Keir Starmer's chief of staff and another aide lost their jobs for simply being part of the advisory process on hiring Peter Mandelson. Keir Starmer, the UK prime minister, almost had to resign for simply elevating another person who had fed Jeffrey Epstein information on how the Europeans plan to bail out European debt. Had nothing to do with the sex trafficking, just that part of it. And he's being accused of they have this charge of abusing like public office, which is very clearly what has happened here in the US. So it's just remarkable the discrepancy in accountability with the UK, where people who are just involved in empowering individuals who were tied to Epstein losing their jobs. And then over here, you have Donald Trump, who's being personally accused himself of the worst of Epstein's crimes, because it was a broad network of individuals enabling this man that we'll get into in a little bit, hopefully. But the misconduct at the core of this pedophile ring, now Donald Trump is being accused credibly enough that the FBI sought to investigate it. And we don't have any answers about that. And I think what we do know for a fact is why Donald Trump was so horrified about this file set being released. We know why he tried to cover it up. And now we have a individual discovered cover up here that NPR and MS Now discovered.
And I just think to myself, when are these federal judges going to stop giving this Department of Justice the benefit of the doubt? When are we going to actually see action being taken? Whatever the extent, I'm not a lawyer. I tell people all the time, I'm not a lawyer, right? But if you get a directive, a order from a judge that says that all files must be released because of this Epstein Transparency Act, all files must be released, and that the victims, not those who you don't want to embarrass, but the victims, their images, their names, their addresses must be redacted. And that does not happen. Not only does it not happen, not only does Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche go on television and say, Well, it's not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein. It's not a crime to hang out with a known pedophile and a trafficker. And then Representative Ted Louis says, oh, I think that you got the law wrong, my friend, because actually it is a crime. It's like called an accomplice or an accessory to a crime. Particularly, he said, if money was exchanged and if things were happening, the abuse of children was happening out in the open. So you have this order that was presented by a judge, and then you have these quote unquote missteps by the Justice Department in availing the public to the personal information of these victims to re-victimize and re-traumatize them again, because we know who these MAGA supporters are. We know how they take accusations against Donald Trump. And so I guess my question to you is, when, if at any point, is anyone inside of this Justice Department going to be held accountable for knowingly deceiving the public, knowingly choosing to ignore the orders of a federal judge? I mean, there is a report in the New York Times this week that says federal judges' orders, and this includes Epstein and ICE, federal judges' orders have been ignored over 30 times. Ahmed, how? You and I couldn't ignore a judge's
No, we
order.
could not.
Not once, not twice, so
Couldn't
damn
even
sure not
pretend to.
35.
It's unbelievable. It's a level of accountability that is being totally flouted here. I mean, I think like with these federal judges specifically, they need to be issuing contempt orders. They need to like, we are past the point of assuming good faith. They are in a place where, the judicial branch is supposed to be deferential to the other. No, they're not. They're supposed to be checks. I was happy to see the Supreme Court tariff ruling, but we need more forceful and rapid rulings that shut this stuff down. You cannot be blatantly violating the Epstein law has been violated for 2 months straight.
Yep.
2 months straight. That's not, no one else would be allowed to violate the law for 2 months straight. And you know what? These individuals who are running around here doing Trump's bidding, they don't have federal immunity. Now they could be pardoned in the future. But at the moment, they do not have federal immunity. So you know what? Force his hand then. Hold these individuals in contempt. Hold Todd Blanche in contempt. Hold Pam Bondi in contempt. Hold these people in contempt for now. And now we have a direct cover-up, withholding of documents over a direct accusation against Donald Trump. This is one of the biggest scandals, if not the biggest political scandal in American history at this point. And compounded with everything else happening, the amount of grift and corruption that is being totally enabled here is just unhinged. And it's just this normalization of it. Like I hear sometimes the way the New York, certain I don't want to name too many names. Certain reporters, talk in this normalizing tone about the inner workings of the Trump admin, and they test the limits, or they're violating the Constitution. It's not some would say he's violating the Constitution. Some would say he's violating the law. He's violating the law. He's violating the law. He is running an illegal, lawless regime. I recently made an editorial change where I'm starting to call it a regime more often than an administration, because what they were doing, murdering people in the streets. Come on now. Now we're at the point where it's becoming, it already was, but it is inexcusable to continue to empower this administration. Republicans, everyone should be held accountable and at least in the court of public opinion in the future for having to enable this. Like, are you kidding me? The Republicans and the people in the DOJ need to get lawyers ready, because a future administration should not pretend that this didn't happen.
And and that is the thing that gets me, is that what I realize now, we've been living under Trumpism for 10 years. Right? It's been 10 years since that man came down that escalator, 10 years that the media has had the opportunity to build up a spine, that the Democrats, frankly, have had an opportunity to build up a spine and fight back with every bit and power of the law. And what I realize after 10 years of living under this is that we are really not a nation of laws. We are a nation of handshakes, right? That apparently you can violate a federal judge's order and nothing happened to you. You can decide not to listen to the Supreme Court. I mean, you brought up the tariffs real quick and the decision by the Supreme Court. Well, within a few hours of that decision, Donald Trump gets on national television and what does he say? I'm going to apply 15% tariffs across the board because now I'm a toddler and I'm pissed off. The Supreme Court just told you that you can't, right? And you said, fuck them. So I like at some point, it's like we have to recognize that when we looked at other nations and had the audacity to refer to them as a banana republic, and then you realize now that everything inside of this country has been a goddamn sham. Because if we have a 25th Amendment and it's not used now, we might as well not have a 25th Amendment. If we have the ability to impeach a president that is a criminal or involved in criminal activity and it's not invoked now, then we might as well not have the ability to impeach a president. Because I can think of no other thing. No, we're talking about credible accusation of raping a child. And and this man is just going to give the State of the Union in a few
That's what
hours.
I'm
I mean,
saying.
this is what I'm saying when I'm like,
It's
when I get to
just
the level of anger, is like, this man is just going to stand up before the world in a
and
few
yell at us for 2
hours
hours.
and yell at us about his grievances for 2 hours, make no sense, seem completely out of his goddamn mind, and he's a fucking criminal, and we're just all sitting here like, well, I hope that we have midterms. What?
Or we're sitting there parsing, oh, well, Trump's trying to tout his agenda. All the that will be put around it to try to kind of sane wash what he's saying. This is just, it's just, at this point, I'm glad, Danielle, you appreciate you out here just bluntly telling the truth, because what we need is more people who are just saying what this is and expressing the frustration with this pure insanity. We have a mentally unwell authoritarian and
Yep.
insane administration run by incompetent sycophants that are brutalizing the American people, killing Americans and defaming them afterwards, and then now covering up credible allegations of sexually assaulting a minor, credible enough at least to be pursued and interviewed by the FBI 4 times. And then overall, we're just supposed to sit here and pretend like, again, there needs to be courage, because you're right. A law is not a law unless it's upheld. Then it's just a suggestion or a recommendation.
Correct.
Like, I know that the founding fathers woke up in cold sweats, imagining Donald's orange face in their minds when they made the impeachment clause. Like, this guy is the person, the con man that they envisioned, a demagogue. That's why they didn't want to even give regular people the right to vote, because they were afraid at first that they would elect a con man and a lunatic, right? And then again, we have to constantly be forcing this country to live up to its own promises and constitutional amendments and its own ideals constantly. It's always our community specifically that does that most of the time, refounding the country over and over again. I talked about this. I gave the speech to MLK commemoration in Wisconsin last month. I was lucky enough to do that. And I was talking about this, that like, it's us every time that has to refound this country. And like, again, after this, we're going to have to refound it and reaffirm that like we can't be with all these norms. Like, the next Democratic president is going to have to be ruthless in the way that they push this anti-corruption reform. But of course, before we get there, before we codify all the laws and, all the norms into laws and handshakes into, we have to do real reform. And in the short term, people got to stand up. Like, I know it's always on the Democrats, right? And I think Democrats should do more, but it's almost in the mainstream media, assume Republicans will be shitty. It's assumed they'll be depraved, so they don't get pressured on this stuff. They should, let's pretend that we're all rational people again, and not double standard everything. Like, Democrats aren't the only people with autonomy in the United States. Republicans exist, and they need to be pushed just as hard on what they're going to do about this. They could have ended this yesterday. They could have ended it with McConnell having the courage after January 6th to push to the conviction. But we're left with this because of their cowardice. So I'm just trying to figure out a way to keep pushing these people towards some kind of light. Marjorie Taylor Greene saw the light and then left.
Right.
I don't know if she saw the light. We talked about it, but
she saw the light and then took her $25 million that
And
she
then
made in
dipped.
that she made in 6 years and dipped because she couldn't take the pressure that Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Ayanna Pressley and so many other women of color who are in Congress who get death threats all the goddamn time because of people like her, because of their allegiance to Donald Trump. But when the tables were turned, she said, "Oh, my chips are stacked, so let me take my chips and let me go home." And so, that's a different level of cowardice, right? When I look at this, and I'm thinking, because I want to talk about, I want to pull back for a minute and talk about this syndicate, talk
Yes.
about this Epstein syndicate, right? Because Ahmed, this touches every single industry.
Hmm.
There isn't, I mean, from tech, banking, finance,
Academia.
entertainment, academia, politicians, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This man, right, Jeffrey Epstein, enabled by Israel, enabled by Russia, was able to put cameras in his Manhattan apartment, right? Was able to get into all of these different levels and places so that he could use blackmail, right? This is what we're saying, because why else would Leslie Wexner, a multi-billionaire, give this man carte blanche over your life? Make him the executive over your he was not ill, right? Like, of all the people to handle your money, why? Right? Um, and then act like, oh, but I don't know what he was up to. He was handling your multi-million dollar finances for 10 years
And robbing him.
and robbing you. You gave him the Manhattan apartment for free. And by the way, it's not an apartment. I'm in an apartment. He was given a mansion, right? For free. No one gives people stuff for free unless you're trying to shut them up, right? So I'm like, you look at this network, you look at the relationship with Peter Thiel, you look at Elon Musk trying to get in on this. You look, and I continue to say this because I think that it's important for people to understand that all of these people that are involved in this syndicate had one goal, and that was domination. Now, world domination for different reasons. Jeffrey Epstein wanted world domination and power because he wanted to be able to perform his pedophilia without any care in the world. I mean, he basically fucking did, but he wanted to do it out in the open. I want to build a stable of women. I want to have a super seed of sperm. I mean, these are things, these are
Yeah.
all conversations that came out of the emails. You have Peter Thiel, who is involved because he wants world domination. He wants micronations because democracy is no longer compatible, he said, with capitalism, because you want to be able to have as much greed and you don't want regulation getting in the way of any of your desires for domination. These people all looked at the rest of us, the 99%, as pawns, as people, as things that they were inconvenienced by. And that's the thing that I feel like people need to understand, and they don't grasp about this 1%, this group, and what they have
Yes.
in common, and how right now they are controlling every aspect of our lives. So I just want to
100%.
give you an opportunity to talk about what you think we need to be gathering and understanding about these dangerous people.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that is so true because this is bigger than just one man and Maxwell and a pedophilia ring, right? It's an interconnected network that has different levels of culpability, but they're all part and in my opinion complicit in this. Like when you have Epstein at the core of it, you have Epstein, the pedophilia, and at the core, and those sex trafficking crimes, and then the layer beyond that, you have the people who knew about it and enabled it, or at least turned a blind eye. And then the layer beyond that are those who just protected him and let him bullshit his way to the top. You have Les Wexner. He basically robs the guy blind, goes in there, somehow gets all of this access to him. And then he just networks his way. And you and I know this, we're in some of these rooms with, I mean, not with these people, but with people in considered high society. Sometimes we're on cable news, we're in other places. And it's all about who you know. He gamed the system. He gamed the
Yep.
flaws in high society, in academia, in business, in media, in everything. He would go and he would figure out a way to say he knows certain people, to get into certain rooms, and then he would broker. He was basically an intelligence agency broker within himself. He would trade
Yep.
information. He would trade access. He would say, I can introduce you to this hedge fund. If you do this for me, I can introduce you to this. And then at the bottom,
I
he
can
would,
get you into the fancy golf course
yep,
right, that you can't get into. I can. It's all transactional. Go ahead. Yes.
Exactly. Yes, I get you in that fancy, or I can, or for those others, I can get you access to women or girls, right? So he
Right.
would leverage everyone against each other, and it was sickening. And people knew what he was doing. It's, you can't not know what he was doing, but they turned a blind eye. You have, like you said, Musk begging to go to Epstein Island. He didn't even get it, which is funny within itself
This
because
is
he
yeah.
claimed he rejected it. But it's like this interconnected. I'm glad Ro Khanna and Ossoff call it, the Epstein class. Like, it is a class of people that turn a blind. And you see the Obama's former office legal
Yep.
counsel, and I got to call her out too for just palling around with this person. He's joking with her, saying she calls herself a girl to him on accident or something, or like is like asking for advice on like whether she should be Obama's attorney general, and calls herself a girl. And he says, "Oh, girl, don't say girl. Bring back an old habit." This is after he's convicted. You're joking around with and just because the guy has
Pedophile.
money. And again, it's like he knows what people need from each other and leverages it. If you're in academia or you're in a politician, you need the access to the money and the clout. He did this to Larry Summers, who apparently appeared enamored by his lifestyle. Then you have the people who are rich and have no swag or riz or intellect or like
Mm-hmm.
ability to talk to women, and they don't know how to talk to women. So okay, I'm gonna try to give you advice on. He gave plenty of emails giving regular advice on how to talk to women, and in other instances, directly connecting him with underage girls. So it's this disgusting interconnected network of hyper rich, hyper powerful people that are knowingly enabling a psychopath pedophile. In a lot of cases, some of them were knowingly enabling him, and then giving him sweetheart deals like the Acosta deal, who now works in the Trump admin. And it's in the Alex Acosta deal that lets him off, that lets him go back into the wild and rehabilitate his image. It's just one of the most. It's a giant expose on how the 1% operates,
Yes.
and that's really what this comes down to. There are no morals. There's just networks. There's just transactions, and it's just it needs to be usurped. Not I'm not saying revolution, but I'm saying those are people with character either need to find a way to get up in there and change themselves, or we need a cultural reset here to expose this and laws to be upheld, because there's plenty of instances like with Alex Acosta where the law could have stopped this and it wasn't, because there's people who are covering stuff up from the inside, people with no character. Obama's chief legal White House counsel does not have the sense to know that an email with a convicted pedophile might appear in the future? Who are we dealing with here? Who are
Because
the people that
but they know,
run our
but here's
world?
the
Are they?
thing, is because they're all in on it. Do you know what I'm saying? So they're just like, nothing's gonna happen to me, right? Nothing's gonna happen to us because I know this government, I know that government, I know this royal, I got this information. So you're operating in a way that you know that you are above the law. And I'm not just talking about Epstein, it's the entire syndicate. And here's the thing that I say, when we're looking at these people, because I know you're saying, like, I'm not saying revolution, but I'm saying this. We know that these people got their money in dirty ways. All of them. Everything. You don't become a billionaire in the way that these people have money and do it on the up and up. I have said from jump, and Representative Wyden has said, Senator Wyden said it. Follow the money. Follow the money. Right? Look into Peter Thiel's finances. Look into Elon Musk's finances. Look into these people that had relationships with Jeffrey Epstein, whether they were trading in information, whether they were trafficking children, like, follow the money. We also know that how were they able to maneuver in this way with their resources? Crypto. Crypto is an entire black market
Yep.
scam. How are
Hmm.
you able to trade? How are you able to traffic girls? How are you able to traffic information, traffic weapons? You do so with crypto. Who Donald Trump did what? fucking pardons CZ, pardons these people who then invest in his own cryptocurrency. They have made $4 billion. The Trump
Probably
family
even more.
has made $4 billion plus dollars in the last year in crypto alone. And and Donald Trump has passed legislation to not allow investigation into crypto, to not allow regulation into crypto. And so my point is, these people are dirty, every single one of them. And because, I particularly, I'm looking at the folks that are in the new arms race for AI, and the governments that are in the arms race for AI. And so they've tethered themselves to the Teals and the Altmans and the Anthropics and the this and the that. And so they just let them run amok because, if they win the race, then we own the keys to the future.
And that just on a quick riff on that, on the AI front, on what you're getting at here, I got to emphasize there's definitely a significant amount of tools for AI, like, Claude Code. Like, there's so many technological advances. I used to work in tech. I use it for coding sometimes. Very powerful stuff. There are real utilities. But what Sam Altman and a lot of these executives are pushing for is something that is imperceptible and unattainable. They're saying, give us unlimited money until we reach super intelligence. They're not saying until we reach certain ROIs. They're saying some imperceptible, beyond the grasp thing, so that they can cake up these valuations.
Mhm.
These
Yep.
valuations are unsustainable. And then you have Nvidia and these companies doing circular lending, where
Yep.
AI will
To each
invest.
other.
He
Yep.
will invest. They will invest in a company, take equity stake, and then let that company buy chips from them with their own money. And then they're all just betting that one of them is going to hit super intelligence. Meanwhile, OpenAI is burning through cash flow to pursue this super intelligence. Like, if they didn't overpromise and they were just like, we're gonna hit X amount of ROI, we're gonna like using real business language and actually had credible balance sheets, I wouldn't be tripping. But instead, you have this crazy circular lending. Like, these companies, the big seven, Magnificent Seven, will survive. Pretty much all of the AI startups, the 1,300 with unicorn status, with hundreds of millions of valuation, are going to crash. So you have the AI bubble that will pop eventually, on top of all these economic risks that we have here. So you have people pretty much openly, knowingly grifting, in my opinion. A lot of these executives, that with their overpromising. I do think it will deliver on a lot of what they're saying, but not super intelligence is not a thing you can tie a direct ROI to. So that alone is just, I think, a key component of this, because there are new grifts emerging here, and of financial lawlessness, frankly, in this administration,
Yep.
from the crypto, from all of this, where there are probably dozens of other crimes, tangential crimes, millions potentially, that are
Mhm.
happening under our nose. We have no idea how much money is being funneled to Donald as we
How about the
speak.
Board of Peace? How
The
about
Board
the
of
Board of Peace?
Peace,
How about the Board of
a
Peace that
slush
Donald Trump
fund.
just found $10 billion for, of our tax dollars, to go into the Board of Peace? Right? They literally are creating shell companies with our tax dollars. Like,
Oh my
shell, and when you think, I mean, this is the shit that keeps me up at night. This is the stuff that keeps me up at night, or like waking up in like a cold sweat. Because I'm just like, how? How is this all happening? How did we know? We told people. I've been telling people for 10 years about Donald Trump, been saying, my God, wake up. This man cannot get power again. And openly, by the time, who knows? I don't know if it's 2028. I don't know if it's 2030. I don't know when it's going to be done. But I will tell you, by the time that it is, America won't have a pot to piss in. Americans won't have a pot to piss in, because they are literally taking squeezing every dime. As Donald Trump is getting ready to go on air in a few hours to lie to the American people and tell them that the state of the economy is good. When you can look at your receipts, you can look at your utility bills, you can look at your grocery bills, and you know otherwise. Everybody knows at least a handful of people that are out of work right now, that have multiple degrees and don't have a job. But they're lying to us about the job numbers, and they're only going to get worse as UPS lays off people, Microsoft, Google, over and over. Why? Because AI is going to replace middle management. It is to the extent I like, the web is so wide, the grift is so deep, the callousness the depravity of it all, right? Just the I can do anything and anything, anywhere, at any time that I want. And who is going to stop me?
It's insane, and we're seeing it, culminate in so many different facets. You have the CEO of Palantir running around talking like a maniac with a lame
Well, he's
Robert
talking
Downey.
like a drug addict.
Yeah, like
So,
with a lame Robert Downey Jr. impression, the way he speaks, just really off putting. Just on that, so it's got to have to do a quick little fry up of Homeboy real quick, just on the personal note. But overall, all the companies have the major corporations have dropped any perception that they were decent after the first age of woke ended. Now we're entering woke 2. So as the future is woke because we're in woke the sequel now and stuff's bouncing back. We can end. Yeah, woke 2, the second season. We can get end on a positive note in a little bit, but on your, because
yeah,
I do think we're going to bounce back. But on your note about this level of grift and what he's been enabled to do here, it's just truly astounding because all the corporations are now cashing in. They're all short term thinking, how much can we
yep.
cash in on this administration? Trump is thinking, how much can I just enrich myself on this administration? I'm just going to build my ballrooms. I'm going to live out my real passion of interior design. I'm going to do all.
Because
That's really
truly
all.
what it
It's
is.
all he
That's
cares about.
truly what it is.
That's all he cares about. That's the only thing he's a perfectionist on is interior design. But like he is out here milking the White House dry, using it as a personal slush fund. The Board of Peace, which is insane. He's been named chairman for life. What does that mean when the next administration is in office and they're working with the UN? You're telling me we have to deal with a shadow like axis of evil UN
I
run
mean, I
by
think that
Trump?
I think that what Donald Trump has allowed us is like, well, we know where to go when we're trying to investigate the slush fund of it all, right? Like, I mean, let's be clear that that's what it is, and that's why credible countries and individuals have declined,
Mm-hmm.
right? The offer
Yeah.
to serve on this board that, by the way, has $1 billion buy-in, because that seems like what we need to be doing. But I know we only have a couple of minutes left. I do want to ask you, right, about the state of our union. We know that there, I think, at the time that I hit live, there are 40 Democrats that have said publicly that they're boycotting. I want to get your thoughts on what a boycott should look like, whether or not you agree with the folks that are choosing to do counter programming. We know that Representative Hakeem Jeffries told people to just sit there and, and look disapproving, but not to really do much. And then there are others that are skipping it outright. What are your thoughts about how Democrats are choosing to handle this? And what advice, if you were the one to be listened to, would you give them about this opportunity, this moment?
I mean, I think they need to. I'm glad they're bringing Epstein survivors. I'm glad they're bringing Epstein survivors. I think that now, especially with the news today, has paid off in a big way. You bring the Epstein survivors, you elevate, you showcase what's really going on. I think some boycotting, I think that's valid. I think not showing up is also a good approach too, because I don't think it should be dignified. Because it's been hard to grapple with the fact that they have to sit there and then just give disapproving looks when he's an authoritarian. It's like you show up to Emperor Palpatine's, speeches and like just sit there and just not shake your head. I think everyone should do what they feel is right. Like I'm not sure exactly what unified approach would even work with a thing like this. It's one of those things where I almost feel like potentially maybe they could have boycotted the entire caucus could have boycotted because
Yeah.
because what I'm thinking is like minimizing it, minimize this small man because the State of the Union is weak, fractured. He is weak, and that's what I think should have been showcased here. You don't have to show up to watch this small guy rant in your face. Why do you need this? I'm sure it will get. I don't care if it gets negative mainstream press. Like this person is polling so low.
So
He
low.
is so weak. Olympians are talking. We're pushing back on him. This person is not someone that is worthy of any respect
Nope.
of any kind. And we can end with a bigger picture take on the State of the Union. But when it comes to the boycotting, I think they I almost think maybe you could have boycotted the entire thing or no one shows up. And I know
Yeah.
that might have been like unprecedented but I don't think this guy's he show him the respect. You don't have to respect the office of the presidency if the president doesn't respect it himself.
I think that that's 100% right. I spoke with Kurt Bardella the other day, another, analyst and colleague who runs the Watchdog Report, and and he said, look, I think that there should have been like a full boycott
Yeah.
of the State of the Union, and walk out, because my and walk out and turn it over to the Epstein survivors, turn it over to those that have been brutalized by ICE, right? Like, for me, if somebody had said, Danielle, what do you think that the strategy should be? I would have said, everyone go into the chamber. Donald Trump walks in. They sit down. Mr. President, he opens up his mouth to say his first words. Democrats stand up in unison and they file out. They say nothing. You just file out.
Hmm.
You file out and you begin your counter programming once
Yep.
every single Democrat is out of the chamber. And then you have the Epstein survivors. You have those that have been brutalized by ICE. You have the families of people who lost their loved ones, whose loved ones were murdered by ICE, and you give the microphone to them. And
Yep.
all the Democrats stand behind those people. These are American citizens, right? You could even go so far as to have those that have filed for bankruptcy because
Anyone.
of Donald Trump's tariffs. I mean, everyone that has been harmed by this administration is given an opportunity. It's 90 minutes or however long it is. Everyone is given 2 minutes to speak. An
No,
introduction, it's framed, and then they're given 2 minutes to speak. And then we say that is what the State of the Union is under Donald Trump.
1,000%. I think that's an excellent idea. Beyond the boycott, them filing out and then having people across every issue. Like, you have the people who have been, brutalized by ICE. Like you said, you have Epstein survivors that are speaking. You have people who are filing for bankruptcy on the economy side. You hit every single issue. You have it all represented out there.
Yep.
And not only that, you invite independent media. You have a series of
Yep.
creators, people with large followings so that they're covering it, because that's what people will see more of. If you have people out here and then not just giving like scheduled speeches, but talking to everybody so that everyone's getting interviews, everyone's getting everything, all this content. And then you basically push back on the State of the Union programming with all this counter independent programming. That would have been an excellent strategy. We'll see what they do tonight. They'll probably, Hakeem's really does, more of the old fashioned stuff. Doesn't really think that innovative when it comes to this stuff. But I wish you were a minority leader in the House, because that's an excellent idea. And it's just because there's just no legitimacy here. You can't pretend.
No.
And I get frustrated because, like, I'll be explicit. I alluded to some reporting earlier that I didn't like. I watched and I do like Ezra Klein specifically,
Mm-hmm.
but he had a recent podcast with some reporters that were talking about how the inner workings of Trump's White House works, and it was just frustrating to hear some parts of it where there was just straight normalization of just like, oh, how do they manage? It's like he's a child. So, like, you're saying he's a child, and you're walking around it, you're tiptoeing around it. You're saying, oh, this person Susie Wiles knows how to manage him here. It's like you're saying he's a child, and Ezra will push back sometimes and be like, well, actually, it's a real Gentile way of putting that. So but like, I'm just saying, the more any kind of reporting or this is not normal. And I hate I think we need a change of approach on so many fronts of any framing of how this is normal. I'm reading all this stuff about the run up to the State of the Union and reading different reporting. And it's like, what to expect from the State of the Union. And it's all normalizing bullshit. Like, oh, he's going to tout his agenda. He's going to try to tout his economic gain.
Count his
It's like, dude,
and I'm like, where
it's
are
like
they?
this person, this State of the Union is defined by a president who overreached and is facing massive backlash from the public after his administration enabled the murder of individuals and then lied about them and defamed their character systemically throughout the administration. That alone is administration ending stuff. And then the cover up of this allegation is another administration ending event. Every day, every week, there is a new what would end any other administration level event. Every single week, every day. And we have to sit here and pretend that this person is fit somehow to stand at the podium that Obama stood at and Lincoln stood at, and all these other presidents who have, well, not that exact podium for Lincoln. It was just probably, not the exact,
I know
historical
what you
wise,
mean.
but you know what I mean? That stood in
Yeah.
the position.
Yeah.
This person's a desecration of the office, and we have to sit here
Yes.
and pretend this individual is worthy of even leading a Baskin Robbins. Like, what are we doing here? It's just like sometimes I just feel like that, Leonardo DiCaprio and Don't Look Up. Like, when
Yes.
when you go on TV, sometimes this better than anyone. Like, when we're on TV, and it's like I just want to be like, the president's fucking lying, and all of
Yes.
you are insane for acting like this is normal.
Because that's the scene. That is the scene in Don't Look Up, where they invite those scientists on and they're like, tell us something cheery and fun. And he's like, everyone is fucking lying to you.
What I'm
Like,
saying.
how are we, like, what are we doing here? And that is, I think, again, it is part of the larger strategy that they have created, which goes back to Steve Bannon saying flood the zone. Steve Bannon saying, keep them in a state of trauma, meaning the American people. They won't be able, because we're not, as human beings, supposed to take in this kind of trauma over and over and over again. This
Nope.
inundation of horrible news, one day after the other after the other. Today on Substack, folks, I wrote a note of the 8 things that happened this week, and it's only fucking Tuesday. And there were 8 of them that I listed out because I was just like, oh my God, it's only Tuesday, right? Like, so I feel like we can't allow ourselves, those that are watching and those that watch and read you, we cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the insanity and the depravity of this administration. We cannot allow ourselves to exhaust the level of anger and grief. Like, we have to maintain it, but we have to
Yeah.
maintain it with a sense of our own strategy of
Mm-hmm.
what are we doing, right? To take care of ourselves and to take care of each other through this trauma, because that's what we're living through. And so I just want to give you an opportunity as we close out. I always love speaking to you, Ahmed. One is to just, your final thoughts on what people need to do, what people should be doing, and then tell folks how to continue to follow you and your work.
Yeah, it's always, again, like every time I talk to you, like I say, I always feel like I can run through a wall and go and do 20 times more work now. And I know people in the chat are saying they're exhausted. I know we're talking about, you're feeling frustrated with what's going on. And like Daniel, like you said, we can't allow ourselves to become numb. But what I do want people to know is that if you look beyond some of the day to day and the flood the zone tactic of Bannon, we are winning. The pro democracy side is winning. Decency is making real gains. The American people, polling wise, are rejecting him. Special elections, everything is backfiring on this administration. It's an administration defined by depravity and overreach. It's an authoritarian wannabe administration that has pushed it too far. And the American people are pushing back in significant ways. Minnesota, the incredible, inspiring stuff they did there,
Yeah.
the whistle networks, the innovation on organizing, they pushed back and repelled ICE. Unfortunately, 2 people died and lost their lives trying to protect their neighbors, but they pushed back. And that should give people hope. Like, we are making meaningful pushback against the administration. He's weakening. All of this stuff he's doing to make us feel despair is a tactic to try to make us feel powerless. We can still feel upset, be angry and sad by what's happening, but we shouldn't feel powerless because he is afraid of us,
Yep.
deeply horrified that he knows he's about to get absolutely cooked, flambéed, just toasted in the administration in the midterms. He is done. They are done. I don't think there's anything he can do to steal it. He's going to try. I think it's going to fail. We'll see. We'll talk more about that in detail in a
Yeah.
different time.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think it's going to fail. And I think this administration is on their back foot. So if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling sad, I understand, but you have to keep doing what you do. Take care of your mental health. Keep engaging. I see y'all hitting that like button. Do that too. Go out here, support independent media like Danielle Moodie, who's out here doing the real work. Support independent media creators, people who are out here speaking the truth, because this guy's on his back foot. They're losing the information war. Finally, they're losing the information
Yeah.
war.
Yeah.
They're losing the culture war. They're losing on every front. All these things that we thought that we were told he won in 2024 has eroded instantly. The American people had to maybe see the ugly, bare face of Trump's authoritarianism once and for all before they forcefully reject the rot that is MAGA right now. And maybe they saw it. That's my optimistic take.
I
And I
love it.
think we're going to see his speech tonight. We'll all roll our eyes at his insanity. But overall, I think he's on his back foot and he's scared. He's shivering. And I think we got to keep up keep up the work. And if you want to find me, like you said,
Hmm.
subscribe. AhmedBaba.news. Click that button at the top. Do independent journalism. Been doing this for 10 years. One of the first to talk about Project 2025. Thank God that didn't get implemented, right? Um, and come support this work. And Danielle, keep doing what you do because you're
Thank you.
inspiring. You out here forcefully speaking the truth. And we need people like you out here.
I appreciate you, folks. Make sure that you subscribe to Ahmed. Make sure that you subscribe to the Damn Digest. As I always say, I keep my content free because I believe that critical thinking dies behind a paywall. But if you have the ability to become a paid subscriber, do consider doing so. But if you can't, you like, you comment, you subscribe, and you share, so that you know that there is a connective network, a community that you can rely on to help get you through this moment, because it's going to take all of us where we are doing what we can, to keep pushing forward and never feel like you're the only one that feels crazy, that you're the only one that feels alone. There is absolutely something you can do where you are. Ahmed, my friend, I will see you again soon. Be well, folks. Take care of yourselves. The Danielle Moodie Show will be live at 5 p.m. Eastern. So I hope to see you all back there. Be
Thank you,
well.
Danielle. Take care, everybody.